I want to point something out too, by the way. Juan has never, ever denied his actions in this case. Indeed, he gave a full confession to the police shortly afterwards. And he's never pulled back from that, he's never withdrawn from that, he's never backed up one bit. But absent from that confession and absent from his behavior and relationships with others is some sort of explanation. Why did this have to happen? Why did Peggy Kostelnik have to die? Why did all these other people have to, as I say, stare death in the face that day? I can't offer you explanation. I want to. We all want to. We can't, though. 9 months ago, when Juan got locked up, never to return to his cocoon again, he entered this jail, he entered a different world, and now he had to talk to people. Jailers, just the very people who feed him, take him from one room to another. The social workers, the other people who are trying to understand him, get him to communicate. And ultimately, of course, this crew of lawyers and people working with us who were brought on board in the justice system. He's now in the justice system. And it's all of our jobs, to some degree, to try to understand this man who did these horrifying terroristic things. What's happened is that if I go back to 9 months ago, Juan would not talk to his lawyers. He couldn't find a way to really communicate. Barely communicated with doctors and others who came to see him. Was unable and remains unable just to explain what was in his head. But what I'm really leading up to is something that I think is important and something we want you to know. Is that in this process of trying to reach inside his mind, of trying to grasp what took place last July, Juan has begun to change. Not significantly. This is not some cure-all that happened. But he's begun to express his own feelings, his own awareness of what he did. And we begin to see that at last he's showing pain on what he knows he did. And then one day, a couple months ago, he asked us about Peggy Kostelnik. He was concerned. There was a concern and an awareness on his part that he had damaged a family. And that was a revelation to us. And I just want you people to know that as horrible as these acts are, and as inscrutable as Juan Razo is, and how empty I am in trying to explain things, there's a human being there, a broken human being to be sure, but a human being. And he's making these little steps further toward humanity. And I want you to know that. And I'm representing someone who terrorized an entire community, took an innocent life, inflicted damage that is still present among all of you. And I just want you to know that, and we say this for ourselves as the team or whatever that's representing Juan, and also for Juan himself, that we know you've hurt. We know there's hurt and pain out there. And we hope that this day when he will be taken away to spend the rest of his life in confinement, we all hope that each of them begins healing. We wish that much for you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Juan Razo, the law at this point allows you to say anything you want. What would you like to tell me before I impose sentence in this case?
Your Honor, we have spoken with Juan at the jail numerous times, and he has indicated to us that he does not wish to say anything. He would let Mr. Keller speak for him as he has done so.
Is that accurate, Mr. Razo?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Coulson, are there any individuals who wish to speak at this point?
There are, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we have John Cable and Mary Cable that would like to speak first.
All right, when you speak, if you could just state your name for the record, please.
My name is John Cable, K-A-B-L-E. Mary is my wife. Mary's story that she's going to tell today is heartbreaking. I just want to add that the impact to our family has been more than most people will ever understand. From the outside, it appears that they have healed, that they are moving on, that it was a tragic event, but it is in the past. I can tell you that for Mary and our children, the shooting is not in the past. The events of that day get replayed over and over again. Just 1 week ago, our 11-year-old son, who so bravely ran to get help after seeing his mom shot, who called family and friends from the ambulance and hospital to let them know what happened. Just 1 week ago today, he broke down in tears, inconsolable, calling out for hours. Why did this happen to us? Why did he hurt my mom? And why did he hurt us? And verbalizing the pain that he felt, saying it felt like his childhood had been taken away. That he just wants to be a normal kid. You know, he will carry this with him forever. People do not see their 7-year-old daughter, who on that day refused to leave her mother, on the bike trail, not because she was scared for herself, but because she knew that her mom was hurt. Struggle through her days because she was afraid to sleep at night. Dark circles around her eyes from being so tired. Every night after being tucked in, she would slip out of her bed, and she would kneel at the window and pray for the hurt to go away. The memories of the event follow her during the day, too. Playing in the yard, she would hear gunshots in the distance and stop, her eyes wide, and ask, "Are we safe?" My wife, Mary, has been impacted so much by the shooting, and in so many ways. Caring for her children, being strong for them. Physically, she looks like she is healed, but a simple hug around her shoulders causes her to wince in pain and rub her arm to try to get the pain to stop. The countless times she's been in a store or restaurant or other public place and has frozen with anxiety, the color gone from her face. The countless trips to the counselors for herself and the kids. The anxiety that keeps her from going to see a movie, sit in a crowded restaurant, go see a baseball game. She has fought the internal struggle of being absolutely terrified, yet still sitting in a crowded amphitheater to watch our son in a school choir performance. The shooting is not in the past for them. They relive it every day. Mary and our kids will carry this with them for the rest of their lives. And if I may, my children who have not had much of a voice in this, they've asked me to read their impact statements for others to hear. My daughter, who was 6 at the time, she wrote this. She wrote, "I have nightmares because of you. You hurt me a lot, meanie. You hurt my mom. He is so mean. Judge, I don't like him, Judge. Keep him in jail." And from my son, who was 10 that day, he wrote, "I have nightmares a lot and have been having a lot of flashbacks. I've been having trouble getting through my day at school. I'm mad at you because you hurt my mom." My summer ended that day. I wish I could have stopped you. I worry about my mom a lot now. You didn't just hurt my mom, but you hurt my whole family. A lot of things scare me now that really didn't scare me before. I'm worried to go places now. You didn't just hurt my mom and my family, but you hurt other people besides that, like the people that lived around the area, our friends in the community. I want you to stay in jail forever.
Thank you, Mr. Cable.
My name is Mary Cable, K-A-B-L-E. July 27th was a warm, sunny day, and I decided to take the kids over to Greenway Corridor Bike Trail early afternoon. We walked down the path and we were enjoying our day. My kids were racing and singing. My daughter was 6 and my son was 10. We turned around to walk back up the trail and my kids would race and stop at each bench. And I would tease them by running by them as if I could possibly be faster than the two of them. They would in turn jump off the bench and run past me laughing, and we were having a great time. Then a shot rang out and both of my kids screamed. I told them to be quiet. It must just be someone shooting a BB gun. A second shot rang out and I was struck in the arm. I then yelled, "You jerk, stop shooting, I have kids down here." A third shot came, and it was when we started to scream for help. It was then I noticed I was covered in blood. I instructed my kids to run and get help. My son took off without looking back. My son was so brave, he ran almost a mile along the trail. My daughter didn't run. She started to, but she came back to me, and I will never forget the look of terror upon her face. She struggled to leave and listen or stay with me. She was terrified, afraid someone would take her. She was struggling with what to do when yet another shot came and then another. I begged her to run. She finally ran away, up the trail again, almost a mile, alone, a 6-year-old little girl, with the image of her mother covered in blood. I tried to run and felt faint. I was losing a lot of blood, pressure on my wound, but the blood kept coming. I had to start walking, terrified my kids were in danger. When I emerged from the trail, I saw my daughter banging on the walk button as hard as she could to cross the street, still with a look of terror. At this point, I could see my son, and I knew he was safe as there was a police car in the parking lot. I took the shortest path and I walked into oncoming traffic. Shortly after, I was in the grass on the side of the road, and my daughter was standing beside me crying. It was my son that helped my daughter cross the street and then went to the car to make calls to his father and family. My kids were there alone with no caretakers. They stood looking at their mother shot and covered in blood. When the officer arrived, he quickly let me know that it was a .22 that had shot me. I was already in shock, but the knowledge that someone tried to kill us was beyond what I could process right then. It was not too long before the ambulance arrived, and I remember telling my kids that I was going to be okay over and over again, trying not only to convince them but myself as well. The ambulance ride was filled with my daughter being terrified and my son desperately trying to reach people, and he finally gave up the phone calls and he lowered his head to pray. At the hospital, I was told there was a manhunt going on and someone had been murdered. I felt horrible and terrified, and what if they were going to come back for me? I mean, this man who did evil things was still out there. I was alive, my kids were alive, I'll always have shrapnel in my arm. It was surreal walking into the waiting room to see the news on every channel, manhunt. At that time, it was thought there was an accomplice, and I was terrified he would come for us. Kids and I didn't sleep. We were terrified. Physically, I couldn't dress myself due to my wound. Every task was difficult for weeks. My husband had to take time off work to care for us. And what does one do the day after an attempted murder? Well, first, one must walk through the scene with the detectives. And it was so weird and hard being back there just 2 days later. But then we did what we knew. We took the kids to their swim lessons and just remained in a state of shock. We tried to keep the kids in the most normal setting we could. Neither of them were sleeping. Their nights filled with terror as mine. I would become scared as soon as my husband would leave for work in the morning. Every noise, every unknown person, everything was scary. I couldn't go into a store without being so anxious. I had to leave. I could not continue my life as normal at all. I would be at a stoplight and wonder if the person next to me would shoot and kill me. I was afraid to be alone on a sidewalk. I would not walk anywhere. Even checking the mail scared me. We now live in a new reality. It wasn't long before my daughter started counseling and my son wasn't ready yet. Our weeks quickly became filled with appointments, being at the victim advocate office, meeting with police, prosecution, counselors, etc., and we completely lost the rest of our summer. My husband's vacation days that he was saving for a trip to Disney, he used to take care of us, and the trip was canceled. We didn't have a choice. I don't think any of us could emotionally handle the road trip anyway. We were still pretty much scared of everything. The shooting changed everything about our lives. We moved in August as well, and the kids started new schools. My daughter's anxiety rose. It was too much for her while processing the shooting. She's been homeschooled since October. My son has had to deal with kids mentioning the shooting at school. They don't mean anything by it, but he has to deal with that emergence of emotions at any given time. I had to arrange my life around ensuring the best I could do to keep my kids feeling secure. The next 5 months were filled with a complete focus on my kids, and after Christmas, I was no longer able to hide my anxiety and panic attacks, and I resigned myself to my house. I rarely got off the chair in our living room. I became paralyzed by what had occurred. It took a toll on my relationship with my children and my husband, and I pretty much left life for a few months. I did not talk to my friends, I disengaged from my family, and no one could snap me out of my depression and anxiety. This took a huge toll on our family and my friendships, and the trauma has changed every single relationship I have, and not all for the better. Loneliness kicks in, and my life was so isolated for what seemed like so long due to this shooting. I strongly wrestled with why I was still alive. I would sit on my porch in the middle of the night in the freezing temperatures just to feel the cold, because the feeling of cold would keep my body from feeling the pain of the reality for a short time. I just wanted to escape the mental pain, and it never ceased. All 4 of us had counseling appointments weekly, and we still spend a lot of time in counseling appointments. My arm had physically healed for the most part, and as my husband said, I still feel pain if I'm hugged or grabbed. But the mental and emotional trauma was not even close to over. My daughter sees my scar and is never able to forget what happened. She was only finally able to put her memories into a cohesive story a couple short months ago. She saw him with the gun aimed at us. She calls you the hunter. She has to live with that image for the rest of her life, and she deals with anger on a daily basis at 6 years old. She is still terrified to fall asleep to this day, worried someone will break in and shoot my husband and myself and take her and her brother. We go through this every night, and it's so sad. When she hears odd noises, she has to talk herself through them, and I still do the same. It's not long before it's summer again, and everybody will get to see my scar every day. There's no escape from what happened. Our life has changed forever. My son must go to school every day wondering if anyone will say anything about it. And he is finally starting to realize the full effects of PTSD, as my husband talked about. Crying, kicking, and screaming for hours last Wednesday night, wondering why his brain wouldn't let him control himself. Leaving for school in the morning, scared to death that I'm not going to be okay. We are hopeful that counseling will help both of my children, but it'll never erase them running for their life that day that Juan tried to murder us. I realize the charges are only on my case, but make no mistake. 5 shots were fired at the 3 of us. Juan tried to kill myself and my children that day, and I could not protect them from this evil act. I can never erase my daughter seeing him in the woods with a gun, hearing the bullet whistle by her ear as she watched it enter my arm. I can never take away my kids seeing me covered in blood, and I can't take away the terror they felt that day. I can't change how it will shape their life from now on. They don't see life the same way anymore. Their innocence has been taken from them. The world is now a scary place. At 11 years old, my son thinks it's his job to take care of me. He no longer gets to be a kid. They have to spend too much time in counseling, and I rely on others for childcare while I attend counseling. My husband needs to use sick time and vacation days for counseling and to take care of us, and my kids have had to give up some of their childhood. Our lives have been changed. Although I can finally go into a store alone, I'm still taken aback at times filled with fear. It was only a couple months ago I pressed myself up against a wall in a local department store after hearing someone whistle. Just because the legalities will be over does not mean the effect from trauma ceases. There is no question our faith in God is stronger. There is no question our life will never be the same. Juan Razo changed our life completely by his intentional act of violence. I want my kids to know that he will spend every single day and night for the rest of his life behind bars. We still must struggle every day. But one thing that the media reported is that you tried to shoot me. You did shoot me that day because you wanted to see me fall, but you know what? I didn't fall. And we haven't fallen, and we may stumble. But our Creator helps us stand against evil every day, and you can't take that away from us.
Thank you, Ms. Keegan.
Your Honor, we have Caitlin DeVan to speak next.
Mr. Van?
My name is Caitlin DeVan, D-E-V-A-N, and I'm speaking on behalf of my husband, Kyle DeVan, who was Peggy's nephew. Your Honor, my name is Kyle DeVan, and I'm the youngest of Peggy Kostelnik's 3 blood nephews. Peggy was my late father's sister, and always more than just an aunt to me. She was like a second mother to my brothers, my wife, and me. To our beautiful 4-year-old daughters, she was like a grandma and a best friend. Peggy and I were very close. We did many things together, and we talked daily. She went above and beyond the call of duty to support me and my family in our endeavors. Sometimes that meant driving for hours to watch boxing matches or spending whole days in cold barns to cheer us on at horse shows. No matter what, we counted on Peggy, and she counted on us to make the most out of life. Peggy was always in a good mood and had the ability to instantly put a smile on your face. I was lucky that in addition to being close to her personally, we ended up working for the city of Willoughby, just a few steps away from one another. We made time to go out to lunch often, and of course she would always buy, because she could never resist the urge to give. We really did so much together. To my twins, Aunt Peggy played a role much greater than words can describe. She viewed them almost as her own adopted children or grandchildren, visiting them weekly so she could absorb the energy from their smiling faces and watch them grow. Peggy would always talk about how proud she was of the girls over the littlest things. Everyone knew about the twins because Peggy spoke of them constantly. Her love had truly no limits. I can't begin to express what the defendant has taken from my family. We will remember July 27th, 2015 forever. After hearing that there was an active shooter by her house, I started calling Peggy frantically to make sure that she was home safe, unknowing that he had already murdered her. I will remember that day forever as one of the worst days of my life. Trying to wrap my own head around the situation was difficult. To my girls, it was impossible to understand why someone would hurt Peggy. There's no easy way to tell 4-year-olds that someone they love was murdered, but my wife and I did the best we could. Unfortunately, the grim details weren't easy to hide once Peggy's face was on the news, and they heard that she was shot. Routinely, I still get called into their rooms at night, having to try and explain what happened to Peggy. There are no answers that 4-year-olds can fully comprehend. They always ask if the same man is going to come to our house at night to hurt us. Each time, I have to explain that I am there to protect them and that that man that hurt Peggy will be in prison until the day he dies, so that he can never hurt anyone again. These are the most difficult conversations I have ever had to have. My daughters may only be 4 years old, but they understand that they will never be able to see Peggy again. They sing about her, they draw pictures of her, they even wear jewelry that reminds them of her style. Oftentimes, I'll be driving with the girls and they will look up into the clouds and ask me if that's Peggy's cloud in heaven. I could go on forever about how this has impacted my family and me. The defendant has cut short many great memories that would have been made. He has taught horrible acts of violence to young children, and he has taken away a mother figure from me. Life will never be the same. Holidays, birthdays, and everyday life will be missing something beautiful and kind. We will always find ways to remember. One thing I know is that my daughters will never forget Peggy, and we will make sure of it by teaching them to live their lives the same pure and generous way that Peggy lived hers. Peggy was a hippie, the kindest-hearted, least judgmental person I have ever met. She never spoke badly of anyone and was able to find the good in everyone in every situation. I'm sure that Peggy would have even tried to help the defendant had he not harmed her. Because simply put, that is just the way she was. Peggy put others before herself and tried to help everyone no matter what. Now, Peggy is no longer around to be with us anymore and lift us up with her relentless positivity. But the energy of her spirit and the memories of her big heart will live on in so many ways. As for the defendant, I refuse to remember his name. He does not deserve to be remembered. While his actions will always be remembered and felt, he will soon be forgotten. So I ask Your Honor that you carry through with the agreement that the defense and prosecution have made so that the defendant will never have an opportunity to be free and hurt others again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van.
Your Honor, Greg DeVan.
Greg DeVan, D-E-V-A-N. There's no way to measure the impact that the loss of Peggy has created. Peggy was not only my aunt, she was one of my biggest supporters and comforters. Peggy was someone who was always there for me and my family. No matter what was going on, she'd always find a way to bring peace and happiness to any situation. She always wanted you to have a smile on your face and do whatever she could to make that happen. Peggy had the biggest heart of anyone I knew, and it was infectious. Being around Peggy, you always felt good. Anytime I had good news, no matter how little it was, Peggy was always so excited and happy for you. She was always someone I could turn to feel good, share stories with, and laugh with. I won't be able to replace that. When I first heard there was a shooting on the Greenway corridor, the first thing I thought about was, I hope Peggy's okay. That day ended in a way I never imagined. I don't think I'll ever be able to understand how this could happen to her. There's no logic where any of this makes sense. Seeing the pain that this has caused for my family is the hardest for me. Situations like this is one we would turn to Peggy for comfort, but we can't. I could talk endlessly about what Peggy meant for everyone in my family. She will be missed. Moving on will be tough. You can't place what Peggy did for me, my family, and her friends. We can only try to move forward living our life the way Peggy would want us to, happy and to the fullest. The world has lost one of its best. The defendant has caused irreparable harm to our family. I ask that you honor and make sure the defendant will never be free again to do what he did to anyone else's family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Kostelnik would like to speak.
My name is Bill Kostelnik, Kostelnik. First of all, I'd like to thank the court and everyone here supporting me and the family. I'm not going to say a lot, but I'd like to know, let everyone here, don't let the evil run through your veins. It'll ruin yourself, and it'll ruin everyone else around you. Lord, please have mercy on his soul. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
That would be all, Judge.
Well, actually,
Sorry.
with Peggy's brother would like to say something.
I'm Richard Lee Bann, his brother. I just want to say just a couple of the words that I said in my impact statement, and that is that I truly hope, of course I want Juan Razo to go to prison for the rest of his life, but after hearing, especially after hearing the attorney today, I truly hope that he can somehow find meaning and some redemption in his life. And it looks like he may have made a couple of steps, but I truly hope that. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Coulson, on behalf of the state.
Your Honor, as has been pointed out, this is a joint recommendation for sentencing that the defendant receive the maximum sentence on each count consecutively. That means he would receive the sentence that we're agreeing to would be life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 107 years. We're also agreeing that he will pay the maximum fine of $180,000, and it is stipulated for the restitution amount of $17,606 to William Kostelnik for the expenses that he had in the burial, funeral expenses, headstone, and cranks and cleanup. The court also has to make a specific finding to impose the consecutive sentences, and I'd just like to make a few comments on that, if I may. This defendant made the intentional decision on that day to come out of his room, we heard about a cocoon as it has been called, because he couldn't talk, to talk to a 14-year-old family member. Said he wanted to take her to the park. His purpose was to try to get sex with her. He told her that, can you play doctor? So he could talk well then. When she refused, he intentionally caused physical harm to her, trying to rape her. He then went to the Kostelnik's house, where he intentionally tried to rape and murder, or did murder, Peggy Kostelnik. He then went to the Greenway Corridor, where he intentionally tried to shoot Mary Cable, Captain Gondorfer, Sergeant Peterson, and Detective Bierdowski. I think those facts and the other facts that were presented to the court during the change of plea allow this court to make the findings necessary under Revised Code Section 29.14C for the consecutive sentences. Because consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from future crimes from this defendant, to punish this defendant, and consecutive sentences based upon his actions are not disproportionate to the seriousness of the offender's conduct. Also, we'd like you to make the finding that at least 2 of the multiple offenses were committed as part of one or more continuing course of conduct. And so we ask the court to impose the maximum consecutive sentence on all counts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coulson. The court has considered the overriding purposes and principles of felony sentencing set forth in Revised Code Section 2929.11, those being to protect the public from future crime by the defendant and others, and to punish the defendant using the appropriate sanctions the court determines accomplishes those purposes and principles. And to achieve those purposes, the court has considered the need for incapacitating the defendant, deterrence from future crime, rehabilitation to the extent that's even applicable, and restitution to the victim of the offense. Now, in determining the most effective way to comply with those purposes and principles, the court has considered all the relevant statutory factors relating to seriousness and recidivism set forth in Revised Code 2929.12, subsections B through E, under the factors that indicate that these offenses are more serious, that the injuries were exacerbated by the physical nature of the acts, that the victims in these cases suffered serious physical harm in the case of Margaret Razo, serious physical harm in the case of Mary Cable, serious psychological harm regarding Marley Cable, and serious psychological harm regarding Gregory Cable, and obviously serious physical harm to Peggy Kostelnik before you murdered her. I also paid a $20,000 fine. With regard to count 5, serve a term of 3 years on the firearm specification and a term of 11 years in prison and a $20,000 fine. With regard to count 7, to serve a term of 3 years on the firearm specification followed by a term of 11 years in prison and a fine of $20,000. With regard to count 9, to serve a term of 3 years on the firearm specification followed by a term of 11 years in prison and a $20,000 fine. With regard to count 13, to serve a term of 3 years on the firearm specification followed by 11 years in prison and a fine of $20,000. And on count 16, that you serve a term of 7 years on the firearm specification followed by a term of 11 years in prison with a $20,000 fine. Each of the sentences that I've given you on counts 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 13, and 16 are consecutive to each other, and that consecutive sentence in those counts shall be served consecutive to the life in prison without the possibility of parole. Does that, Mr. Coulson, cover all the counts?
Yes, it does, Your Honor.
Total fine is $180,000. Also ordering that you pay restitution in the amount of $17,600.06 to the victim. And the death penalty specifications contained in count 11 is dismissed, are dismissed. Is that covered?
That covers that, Your Honor, but you didn't make the consecutive findings.
That was next.
Okay.
Followed by the final one. I find that consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from future crime and to punish the defendant, and consecutive sentences are not disproportionate to the seriousness of your conduct, as I've outlined previously, and to the danger that you pose to the public. I also find that at least 2 of the offenses were committed as part of 1 or more courses of conduct, and that the harm caused by at least 2 of the offenses committed was so great or unusual that no single prison term for any of the offenses committed as part of any of the courses of conduct adequately reflects the seriousness of your conduct. So that is the reason for the consecutive sentences. Now, clearly you're never going to get out of prison, but I'm required by statute to read the following. Upon completion of your sentence, you will be subject to post-release control and supervision for 5 years as determined by the Adult Parole Authority. If you violate any supervision or condition of post-release control, the parole authority may impose more restrictive sanctions upon you or return you to prison as part of this sentence for up to 9 months for each violation, up to a maximum of 50% of the stated prison term. If your violation of post-release control is a felony offense, you will be prosecuted for that offense, and the court which presides over that felony offense may impose an additional consecutive prison sentence for your post-release control violation. If that's the case, then the maximum prison term for the post-release control violation should be the greater of 12 months, or the period that you have left under post-release control. Is there anything further, Mr. Coulson?
Your Honor, just so the record is clear, the state is also dismissing the death specification from count 12, and the defendant has 276 days of credit.
And
for time served.
thank you. The specification in count 12, which count 12 merged into 11, but count 12, the death specifications are also dismissed.
Also, Your Honor, the court would like the court to find that the defendant having convicted of felony is a suspected alien, and therefore direct the clerk of courts pursuant to 2909-30 to notify the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Section of the United States Department of Homeland Security.
And the clerk of court is directed to do so under that statute.
Yes, they are.
And you said how many days of credit?
276.
And there's 276 days of credit on the sentence. And so the directive, the clerk of courts is notified to contact the federal government to make that notification for deportation. Now it's hopefully in the non-event that he is ever released and deportation becomes necessary, hopefully the federal government will see fit to deport him. Now, I did want to say there was, on behalf of the, not on behalf of, but with regard to the Lake County Sheriff's Department, that there was a press release put out back in July of 15. The defendant was stopped, as near as I can tell, sometime in early July of 15. And his presence, after there was an indication that he was not here legally, was made known to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, and they neglected to take custody of him. So the Sheriff's Department, I want it noted for the record that they acted properly and their previous engagement of the defendant, and the federal government did not. Is there anything further, Ms. Coulson? No, Mr. Kelleher?
Nothing further.
All right, we're adjourned.
All right.
Yeah.
You were so powerful. You were crying like a baby. Wish you the best.
Okay.
Your family.
The media would like to speak with anybody if anybody would like to speak with them. It's completely up to you to make that decision. No? Okay. Do you have anything to say? Okay.
You're very lucky. You guys, as easy as it possibly could be under the circumstances. It's not that. It's new to us, though, it's not. So please know that. Best of luck to you.
What you guys are going through.